to get us slightly back on track, though, let's talk about where your life used to be hard, right? Because that's one of the things that you're pretty open about, and one of the messages I think that's very impactful that you share with other people who may have gone through some similar challenges that you went through and everything like that. So, can you tell me what was it that in your mind that made your life hard?
Well, like I mentioned pretty casually earlier, so I had a lot of addiction issues when I was young,
Mm,
and they kind of came from there was a lot of like religious trauma that happened, and a lot of trauma, just like home based trauma, different stuff that I don't want to get too deep into, but there was some issues, in my family with sexism and some other stuff that went on, and then religious trauma and stuff. And I just remember feeling really, really alienated when I was really young. And so I started drinking and smoking weed when I was 12. And then by the time I was 16, maybe 17, I do get the dates sometimes wrong. I was addicted, like full on addicted to crack, looking on the ground for crack rocks and, scamming money out of my mom and stuff like that. So so I think like and of course with that life, between 12 and 18 comes a lot of other, I don't know what you would call them. I mean, small traumas
mhm.
that all sort of build up upon each other and stuff. And so when I say that I had a hard life, I mean I was suicidal when I was 17. And I've been two different kinds of suicidal, if this makes sense.
Mhm.
Um so when I was 17, that's the one where I was hospitalized and I was hooked up to heart monitors, and I was like, very, very close to death. And other times, sometimes it was a cry for help, and sometimes it was a in the moment, very chemicals in my brain based thing where things are
Mhm.
going haywire and I just wanted relief in that moment. But when I was 17, I was wholly sad and I planned it out, and it didn't work, thankfully. Like I mean, now looking back, a decade and a half or so, I'm very, very happy that it didn't work. But at that time, I was in such an incredibly dark place, believing that nobody really cared for me and that I didn't have inherent value as a human, and that there was really no escape from the lifestyle that I felt I was prescribed.
Mm.
Does that make sense?
Absolutely, I completely understand.
Hmm. So yeah, so when I was 17, like I said, I tried to commit suicide, and I was just severely addicted to crack as well as cocaine. And I mean, I had some issues and stuff with alcohol and all that stuff, but it was really all just feeling really sad. And um back when I was 14, my parents had sent me to go, and I had started drinking and smoking weed, but I wasn't using any like hard drugs at that point or anything. And then my parents sent me to go live in Missouri of all places with
Mm.
this family that they met online. And they I understand now that they were grasping at straws and just doing something, because doing nothing they felt helpless.
Mhm.
I also understand that it was a terrible decision and caused catastrophic traumatic damage to both me and to my relationship with my parents. But so there was abandonment issues, and just a true belief that I would never be loved. And that came out in drug addiction. I got addicted to crack because my uncle offered it to me,
Mm.
because it would make his crack cheaper, and some other reasons that are really sad to think about. He's passed away now. But that's kind of the story of my addiction. So I can elaborate on any of that if you have. I never know what's interesting to people.
Well, I mean, I always try to choose my words carefully here, and I need to start reading a thesaurus more frequently to do so. Because interesting is a word that I would use as well, but it seems to be reductive, if you will, of the impact of the story, and sometimes. But I think where I'd be interested most in that story is that, like, how does that start for you, or what are the first steps of there? Because so let me say it the way that like a dare ad would say it, right? Were Do you feel that drinking and smoking were kind of your gateways to that, or do you think that even without those, you may have ended up going through the same process that you went through?
So personally, I think that alcohol could be considered a gateway pretty fairly.
Mhm.
I do not think that smoking weed was a gateway. I'm not anti-cannabis. I think of it as a tool. I'm actually oddly not anti-drug as a whole. I'm anti-drug abuse.
Mhm.
Um, but when it comes to what that started, I don't think that those were gateways. I think that they were what was available
Mhm.
to a desperate person searching for anything. I think that if I'd found heroin first, I would have done heroin first. If I'd
Mhm.
done crack first, I found crack first, I would have done crack first. But it was about access, is I was just looking for anything. So yeah, I mean, how I started was, like I said, so there was some religious trauma and issues with the youth group at the church I was at and stuff like that. And I was just feeling more and more alienated from my peers. I'd grown up. We went to a private school that was a Christian school, and as much as it was a good education academically, it did not give us skills socially whatsoever. And so when I entered public school, I was, for lack of a better word, very naive and hurt badly as a result of it. And so I just kind of just started feeling more and more alienated. And I know I've been using that word a lot, but it's the only word that really describes it, where I just felt like an outsider and so alone. And like my belief in God at the time, and I mean it's since changed, but at the time was that if he exists, then he's cruel. For like, where are you kind of thing.
Mhm.
And like I said, just feeling like my existence was a cruel joke. And when I discovered drugs and alcohol, there was kind of two benefits. The number one benefit was escapism, right? And I mean, we all know that there's many, many ways to escape. But the other benefit was, actually, I guess there's more than that. I felt that it was a way to stop caring because I didn't know how. And also, I felt like I had friends. Now, some of those people turned out to be, really great people and are still my friends. But for the most part, I think that it was less about friendship and more about, who could get the alcohol. Like when you're 12 years old, alcohol is not
Mhm.
easy to access, um, and stuff like that. So that's kind of what entered it, was just desperation. And like I said, I don't feel that it was a gateway. I think no matter what, no matter what, like I was just looking for something, anything. And 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 I mean, I do think, like I said, though, I do think that alcohol can absolutely be a gateway. I know that I've made many poor decisions um while drinking, uh especially when I was young.
Mhm.
And so I can very much see how alcohol could be a gateway, because where you might have the strength to say no to something sober, it might not be there when you're under the influence of alcohol.
But to keep away from the darker part of your life and stuff like that, I do want to remind everybody, or at least the listeners who don't know, this is a story of triumph. It is a story of there being a silver lining to these type of things, or whatever. So can we talk about that? What was that process like for you? Like, what was that? Do you remember a single moment where you really started to pull yourself out of that, and like kind of how did that process go?
I don't. Okay, so like full disclosure,
Hmm.
um I have, from what I understand, based on a diagnosis, CPTSD.
Hmm.
And so that's, for anyone who doesn't know, complex post traumatic stress disorder. And basically, there are large chunks of my childhood and youth that I just straight up can't access on demand. Of course, they come up randomly when I don't need them
Hmm.
to,
Right.
but but on demand, I really struggle to access. But I do have a general idea of what happened there. So it was shortly after the suicide attempt, and just to kind of explain a little bit about that. At the time, again, addicted to crack, addicted to cocaine, and was diagnosed with bipolar, which
Hmm.
I don't have a problem with, but I don't have bipolar. So like kind of not super helpful. Um
So
but
like a
so
misdiagnosis is what you were.
yes,
Okay,
yes, I was
just checking.
misdiagnosed with
Yeah.
bipolar. And and it was really like, I mean, I guess the actions of a 17-year-old who's high on cocaine are probably similar to some of the actions of a 17-year-old with bipolar, but I don't really
Mhm.
know. Um but around that time, I remember, I would scream at my mom and she would just be like crying. And this is all after, the traumas and stuff
Mhm.
from earlier teenage life. So it's not like I wasn't a villain, but I certainly wasn't a good guy either at the
Mhm.
time. And I remember this one moment, and I don't know if it was the moment that really changed things for me, but I do remember the moment. And I was high on crack. I would go in the bathroom and I'd lock the door and I would announce to the whole house I was taking a bath because I thought that was normal for some reason. I was like, I'm taking a bath.
Yeah, the things that kids do to cover their lies, there's plenty, of people who've said that phrase out loud for various reasons, yeah.
Yeah, yeah, it's super normal, right? Every
Yeah,
time I take a bath,
I do that to this day, I just announce it just in case anybody I go out in my hallway in my apartment, I just let people know just in case they were wondering.
Yeah, so I'd done the regular announcement of my bath, and I went in and I would always I don't know why I'm gonna tell this, but I just think it's so funny. I would run the bath, and I wouldn't get in the bath at any point
Mhm.
until I was, like, done, and then I would, like, dip in the bath and get out. I'd get my hair wet and get out just so that I could just
Yeah,
so that I
you gotta have evidence, right?
yeah,
You can't
exactly.
come out dry. Yeah, no, I get you.
But so I was in the washroom and or bathroom because you guys don't say washroom, bathroom, and, you do say bathroom, right?
I bathroom, restrooms,
Okay,
I've
okay.
lived in the southern half of the United States for a while, sometimes we'll just say toilet.
Okay.
There's a
I
lot of words
never
for it. I've heard
never
washroom, so
remember
I'm
what
familiar.
Americans say, okay.
No,
Um,
there's no consensus, and a lot of the things that we say, even we know we're wrong, but we still do it, so I wouldn't pay too much attention to that.
okay. I just know last time I was in Texas, I got made fun of really badly for saying washroom,
Well
but,
they'll make fun of you for saying Z, even though the majority of the world uses that letter, and we're like, "Nah, Z, it's Z." Look, I don't know. Don't get me started on that again. Anyways.
but, yeah, so I smoked some crack, as one does, and then I looked in the mirror,
I love that.
and
That was a very cavalier way to mention smoking crack, as one does. Like, yeah, thank you for that. That's the highlight of this entire thing for me is that.
um, and then yeah, and then I looked in the mirror and it was the weirdest feeling. And honestly, I to this day have trouble looking in mirrors because all of a sudden it was like, okay, I don't know how to describe it, but it's like almost like not my life flashing before my eyes like in a death scene cartoon way,
Mhm.
but a my potential flashed before my eyes. Like everybody that maybe not everybody, but all these different people that had told me that I have so much potential and that I'm going to be, oh, Kara, you're so smart and you're going to grow up and be this amazing person. And all of that just kind of flooded into me. And I could see, I mean, you can see when someone's high, you can see it in their eyes. And I was just so fucking sad. Oh, sorry. I'm so sorry.
No, you're
Um,
good. We
I
cuss
was
on this thing all the time. You're good.
okay. I was just so sad. And and then at some point after that, after the suicide attempt, after making my mom cry in the corner, I went to this drug addiction center right beside my school because of course I was an alternative school.
Mhm.
Um, right beside my school and I was like, I need to go to rehab and I needed to be really, really far away because my mom had tried to help me get into detox programs and stuff like that. But I would always call my mom and manipulate her into coming and picking me up, or I'd run away or whatever, right? It just didn't work. So I went in and I said, I need to go to rehab and I needed to be really far away. And and then over the next couple months, and it was a long process, like it was months and months, and I had to write these big long things. I would spend, part of my day getting into this rehab and then the rest of my day smoking crack. And I remember smoking crack, like my mom was so proud of me. She was so excited that I was going to get clean. And she gave me 20 bucks or 40 bucks or something, 50, I don't know, some money. Um as a reward so that I could buy myself something nice in the airport. And of course I went and bought a bunch of crack with it. And I I was smoking crack right up until I got on the plane, and then that was it. I never smoked crack again. I never did coke again. I went to this rehab program. It was 11 months, 10 months. It was a long time in Montreal. So, like I said before, I'm on the west coast of Canada.
Mhm.
Montreal is not the east coast, but it's much much further east,
Yeah.
near New York. And yeah, it was super militant. It was not an AA program, which has probably informed a lot of my views and my, anti-prohibitionist and my non abstinence only education views. And yeah, and so I got clean, and there was a lot of difficult times there, and then I eventually came home, and yeah, I mean, it's been a hell of a journey since then too.
Thanks for checking out Starting Nowhere. Come find us on Facebook so you can comment on this and other clips and episodes of Starting Nowhere.